There are growing evidences to suggest that climate change is impacting the vast water resources of South Asia. The evidences suggest that warming, in particular, is hampering the flow of the rivers. Warming is impacting the glaciers of the mountains from where the rivers originate. And the vast alluvial plains, the Indo-Gangetic plains, where a vast number of people live and their livelihoods become threatened because of the changing impact of climate change on the water resources. But further studies are required. We need to be prepared. We need to take precautionary measures. And I think adaptation policies relating to climate change impact on water resources is something that we have to consider very strongly. There is a very important connect between the Arctic and the Himalayas. India's interest in the Arctic comes from our own concerns on the glaciers in the Himalayas. And it is said that whatever is happening, the geophysical changes in the Arctic that is happening because of the glacial melt and the snow melt, etc., is having an impact on the mountain features of the Himalayas in terms of rainfall pattern, in terms of temperature increase, and more specifically in terms of the glacial melt. So there is a scientific connect here. And the knowledge that we gather in and around the Arctic is probably a global common resource, a global common knowledge resource, which we need to utilize when we study our Himalayan glaciers itself. Why the Himalayan glaciers are important is because many of the great Asian rivers originate from the glaciers of the Himalaya. And the changing impact of warming on the glaciers in the Himalayas are affecting the flow pattern of the rivers. These rivers, in turn, give socio-economic growth to the vast number of people in India, in Pakistan, in Nepal, Bangladesh also. And also many of these rivers flow into China. So there is a huge dependency on these rivers, and therefore the changes that is happening in the mountain glaciers needs to be studied very carefully. So there is a very strong scientific connect between the Himalaya and the Arctic. We need to study the glacial changes in the Arctic to understand the snow changes and the water changes and the permafrost changes in the Himalayas. There is a concept which is very interesting, which has come about of late. We know the world as a world of two poles, the North Pole and the South Pole. There is also now a third pole, the Himalayas. Many of the rivers in South Asia are transboundary in nature, originating in one place, flowing into another country, and draining into another country. So South Asia is quite interesting. It is a riverine region where states' relationship are shaped by rivers as much as politics, as much as economics, as much as other strategic issues. While politics is very sensitive, while security issues in South Asia are not very agreeable to each other, while there are tensions, yet the rivers have treaties that allow for sharing of the water. So from the more physical use of water in terms of quantity and sharing, we are moving towards what is described as benefit sharing, in which we gain a lot of benefits while also protecting the quantity and the quality of these rivers. And I think this is making South Asia as a neighborhood a potentially economically viable region where we move from what is described as protected peace to more functional peace, in which the aspirations of the people are met, in which prosperity is an important element, in which economic sustainable growth becomes the driving factor.